Greetings, friends. Tonight we got a weird one. I am doing a review of my all-time favorite David Bowie album, which is maybe not the album you think it is. That is 1979's album, Lodger, which contains no real big hits by Bowie and is never really talked about because the album is weird as fuck, but in the best way. Here's the cover in all its glory. That is Bowie just hanging out on the floor there. Today we're talking about Lodger. So let's go back to 2006. I am at Tower Records with my friend. We come to an end cap of an aisle, and there are, of course, what Tower used to have, some selects of different albums. And one of the albums was the greatest hits of Billy Idol, and the other album was the greatest hits of David Bowie. Now, at the time, I had only heard two songs by David Bowie, Space Oddity and Let's Dance. So when my friend Pilecki asked me, hey, what should I get? Should I get the greatest hits of David Bowie or should I get the greatest hits of Billy Idol? I said, oh, dude, Billy Idol. He's so awesome. Thankfully, my friend didn't go with my advice and he bought the greatest hits of David Bowie. And basically what happened was we got in the car, we put in the album, we started driving off, and about 3 songs in, I said, hey man, turn the car around. I need to buy this too. And the rest was history. The rest of my life was Bowie obsession. Rightfully so, because I really do think 300 years from now, 500 years from now, when really just the cream of the crop of musicians from our modern music industry are mentioned, one of them will be Bowie. So to really understand Bowie, the ABCs of David Bowie, the first thing you need to know is that he has different eras. And for someone who has had, is it like 26 albums? Depending on what you count, you're gonna have eras. For example, I think the era that most people talk about and refer to are his glam rock albums. And of course, that's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust. That's Aladdin Sane. That's Pinups for all you people that are into the deep cuts, and Diamond Dogs. That whole era is what most people know David Bowie for. And then, of course, they know him for Let's Dance because he's a 40-year-old funny guy making a funny time out of himself. But between the early 80s and the 70s, he had a strange ride, a strange journey between 80s Bowie and glam Bowie. After Diamond Dogs, he went into his Plastic Soul era, which was, depending on who you ask, it's 2 studio albums and a very awesome live album, but I'm not going to count live albums because it's not new material. But after that, being a cocaine addict and living in LA, Bowie decided that he needed to make some changes. So him and Iggy Pop, his good friend, they went over to Berlin for a few years in the latter part of the 70s and started making these odd experimental albums with Brian Eno, and we are left with the Berlin trilogy, which I think is maybe one of the most interesting album trilogies by any musician ever. So the first in the Berlin trilogy is Low, which doesn't really have very many hits, not really featured on any top 40 radio stations, but is widely known and widely beloved because it's one of the first albums, I think, to break the barrier into pop culture that featured synths and some new wave sensibilities before new wave was even a thing. And then came Heroes, which a lot of people know the hit single Heroes, but that is off the album Heroes, and that is sort of the bread and butter and the gist of that album. Also a very good album. But then there's this third one, made in 1979. And man, if you thought those 2 albums were strange, Lodger is maybe one of the strangest albums I've ever heard, and hands down the strangest album I think David Bowie has ever made. It is perfect chaos, and everything is so obnoxious and bad sounding, but in a way that is so perfectly listenable and interesting. And front to back, I'm just engaged the entire time with this just nonsense. Let's get into the tracks. First track is Fantastic Voyage, which is a very tame song, piano driven. It's actually a really nice put together song that doesn't really fit the rest of the album. There's not much to say about it. It is a very classy kind of Bowie stripped down as a songwriter, like a singer-songwriter. It's a nice unambitious lead-in track, which for this album, I think you really kind of need to ease into kind of what's going on next. Okay, so we get into track 2, entitled African Night Flight. The song is just a bunch of noise. It's just a bunch of noise. It is perfect chaos. It is like nothing I've ever heard before. It's not a song. It doesn't have a melody. It's just crazy synths. It's like some fever dream that David Bowie and Brian Eno must have shared. It's just insane. But it is one of the most interesting, crazy songs I've ever heard. And it instantly made this one of my most favorite David Bowie albums because it is just a nightmare. It is just a nightmare to listen to. If you have a chance, I mean, I don't even know how to describe this song. It is just crazy. So we get to track 3 entitled Move On. And I think this is the first semblance of kind of a Bowie that still has it. Maybe a Bowie that's coming back to his sensibilities. I'm not going to say that it is not a weird song because it definitely is. At its core, Move On, I think, is needed on this album. It at its foundation, it is a very strong song. It's an actual song. It has a galloping kind of feel, galloping kind of rhythm with some acoustic guitar in there. The lyrics make sense, which is always a plus. Pleasant song, not much to say about it, but it definitely, after the fever dream of African Night Flight, it is a nice song to come down with. So with Yes As Sin, I think it is probably my third favorite song off the album. And much like African Night Flight, I think David Bowie is very intentionally trying to push the envelope with his songwriting and put something on this album that is just so far out there and so ambitious, and that's what I love about it. It's described as it's like an unlikely reggae song with a Turkish flavor. There's all kinds of worldly instrumentation that's put into this song, as in addition to other songs off this album. But it's just Bowie going places that we've never been before. And it really, really, I can't stress this enough, it's just him at his weirdest. So I had an old college buddy, and we would play this in the car when we were driving around. This is back in San Jose. And whenever we got to this song, this was his favorite song, and it's called Red Sails. I tried reading up on the song and sort of the inspiration behind it, and it just kind of was a mess. It seems like it's maybe like 5 different things from 5 different parts of the world just sort of clashing together into this song. There's parts of this song where he's not really even singing, he's just kind of shouting, and it's like some real like cheese ball kind of vocal takes, but just so much fun to listen to, and hopefully intentional. We're on track 5, and I couldn't tell you if this album was made out of self-awareness or just some sort of fever dream, possibly drug-induced fever dream that he had. I don't know. I have no idea. Okay, so we get to track 6, and this is actually where this album starts making a little bit of sense. Believe it or not, everything on this album up to this point was not released as a single. We are finally getting into the commercial part of this album. Now, 1979 was interesting because I think musicians were really starting to adopt the whole idea of music videos being a vehicle for releasing their music. And David Bowie is never shy of being an artist, whether it be music or drawing, painting. And in this case, the music video, which I think up until this point, he really didn't have much in his lexicon. I know there was a couple music videos here and there, maybe one off of Low, one off of Heroes, but this is the album where David Bowie really embraced like fully fledged music videos with some crazy ass sets and characters and scenes and stories and all that. That was this album. So with DJ, the lyrics as well as the music video is very braggadocious and very obnoxious. I mean, the music video is basically all these folks gushing over David Bowie, and he's just trying to get away from him, which is very. I mean, hey, dude, go for it. Let your freak flag fly. It's just amazing. I don't know what to say about it. You should watch the video. It's quite insane. DJ as a song, in all seriousness, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's a little bit more structured. It has some pop sensibilities, but it is far, far from being the most interesting thing off this album. And for a song that is supposed to be for a song that's supposed to be a bigger song, that's supposed to be sold to an audience, I don't know, man. It's just a bit weak. Track 7, Look Back in Anger, I think is the first time in the album since that track 1, Fantastic Voyage, where we get to see David Bowie, the vocalist, again. We get to hear his voice, where it's at in that certain point in time in his career. And I think maybe around this time, but definitely Scary Monsters, which was the album after, was possibly his best vocal performances, I think. He still had quite a bit of range. And interestingly enough, with Look Back in Anger, it was the lead-in single for the album, but it's because RCA Records was afraid of releasing Boys Keep Swinging, which is the track after, and which was the lead-in single in many other places. RCA was worried that Boys Keep Swinging and the sexually androgynous nature of the song was going to be a bit too much for American audiences. So there you go, America. And then lastly, with Look Back in Anger, it's, depending on the reviews you read, it's either the highlight of the album or it's the low point of the album. And that really just kind of showcases, again, just how polarizing and how insane Lodger was. Track 8, Boys Keep Swinging. This is a highlight of the album. The song is super weird, so we're going back to the very strange sensibilities of kind of what we saw in the first few tracks. But the music video was just so incredibly out there. I don't know how to describe it other than it's just David Bowie in drag for most of it, and it's different Bowies and different he green screened himself 3 times, and it's all different dresses and wigs and stuff like that. And I mean, damn, that's pushing the envelope for nowadays. I would love to have seen what people thought of that back then. Either way, I mean, it really just showcases the artist that Bowie was, and kind of the pushing the envelope when it came to sexuality that in the 70s was, I think, important, but also just very ahead of its time, which David Bowie is in very many different ways. So Boys Keep Swinging, I would say this is, man, if there's anything to take away from this album, it's that song. Okay, track 9, Repetition. We're getting towards the end. And we're going full force weird again. This song is just abysmal, and it is hard to listen to, and it's easy to laugh at because it's just such a downer song. This is obviously not Bowie writing from his own perspective, but he's writing from the perspective of some dude that I would guess is just kind of good for nothing. Probably some dude that's like, you know, alcoholic or drunk or whatever all the time, just sits on the couch and broods. And it's him complaining about his wife and how she can't cook and how he should have gone out with this other person years ago so that way he would have been in a better marriage and all this other shit. It just, and the way it's sung is like no effort, you know what I mean? It's he's singing it like he's just like a jackass, basically. But I don't know, man. There's something about that. There's something about that song, and something again about this entire album that makes it so interesting. And this song repetition just sort of adds to that weird, playful, devil may care attitude that David Bowie obviously had when he was making this. All right, so we get to track 10. This is a huge reason why this is my, I'm not going to say favorite Bowie album. I've changed my mind. This is not my favorite Bowie album. It's probably like Station to Station here and like Lodger, like right there. But Red Money, track 10. This is one of my all-time favorite Bowie songs. And that's saying a lot because the dude has done a ton of work, right? Red Money, there's something so visceral about it. You can just feel the grit and you can feel the setting of them being in Berlin. I don't know, you can feel Berlin in this song. It had, interestingly enough, with Red Money, it's had a couple different iterations. It was originally written as a song called Sister Midnight, which was a Bowie song, but then was given to Iggy Pop. So then I guess it was an Iggy Pop song. But then Bowie took it and made this song called Red Money. But either way, I like the Red Money version more than the Sister Midnight song. Everything from how the drums work, there's guitar kind of echoing like it's in the middle of an empty stadium. It's just cool. It is just like Bowie at his coolest. I don't know, man. It's just the perfect little button on the end of a very weird, ambitious album. So in summation, Lodger. I would definitely recommend this to anybody that has already listened to the bigger Bowie albums. I think you can't go directly into an album like Lodger and appreciate it. You need to listen to Ziggy Stardust. You need to listen to Let's Dance. You need to listen to Scary Monsters. You need to listen to Black Star. You need to listen to The Next Day. But once you get through all that, and once you're getting into the deeper cuts, Lodger is this fun treat that I think you'll really enjoy. Let me know how you feel in the comments. Are you a huge Lodger fan? I would really love to know. Do you hate it? Let me know. We can talk about it. I would love to talk about this album with people. It is a very buried and kind of underrated and unknown album. So, yeah, let's hear from you.